Thank you, Andy, and thank you all for coming, all of you for coming. We're very happy to hear from Dr. Pam Lea tonight again about her travels. Pam took us to Tasmania, Australia, and New Zealand in March of 2021. She's a retired veteran and an avid traveler. Tonight, she will take us to the other land down under, Antarctica. Welcome, Pam. Where'd you go? Welcome, Pam.
Yeah, where did that go? Oh, here we go, right down here.
Yeah.
And right here.
Yeah. And we get those things that are. Okay, looks like you're good to go.
I get rid of that. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all we need, right?
I think so.
Okay, good. All right, well, again, thank you all for coming in person or on Zoom. I'm not a public speaker and I'm not a PowerPoint person, so this is strictly a straight up slideshow from my travels back in February of 2020. It was canceled February of 2021 due to the pandemic. So we were all very happy to be able to go on this trip finally. I traveled with Overseas Adventure Travel, which I went to Australia trip with as well. We had a small group of 15, but on our ship, there were, it was a ship with 100 passengers, but we only had 58 because they still had a bunch of people that canceled because of the pandemic. So aside from having to go through 6 COVID tests during the trip, of course, negative to get there, we had to hope that none of us would be positive or we would have had a lot of trouble and somebody would have spent a lot of money to spend time in a tiny little cabin on this trip. So anyway, we're going to start off. We went from Syracuse to Atlanta, and then it was an 8-hour, 8,000-mile trip in 9 hours to get to Buenos Aires. One reason I also wanted to go on this trip, I was born in Buenos Aires and had never been there aside from when I was 2 years old. So it was nice to see the city that my parents knew and took tango lessons in. And it was just nice to get there, check it off my bucket list, and also my last continent as well. How do you get this thing off? Let me see. I'll check this off here. Yeah, this may just be another routine flight for you, but for me, it's a fulfillment of a lifelong dream. And every day on the bulletin board during the ship, they had cartoons, and so I took a few of them, and along the way, they're in the middle of this talk here. So we flew to Buenos Aires down here. Very European city. We had 2 days before and 2 days after, so we got a good royal tour of the city while we were there. As you can see, down here is where we leave for Antarctica. So that's another 1,500 miles and a almost 4-hour flight to down there as well. So there's a lot of travel involved. This is May Square, which is the main square in Buenos Aires, where all the demonstrations and talks are, and where I'm sure my parents walked at one time. This is the Pink Palace, where the president his residence, and the balcony where Evita Peron gave her speeches. If you remember, she was the one that Juan Perón was her husband, and she was responsible for his popularity, as she was a great advocate for the poor, the workers, and women. And she was responsible for getting the women the right to vote in 1947. So she was much like Princess Diana in that she had real charisma, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her after. This, believe it or not, is a cathedral. It looks more like a library, but it's the main cathedral in the city. The city has a population of 15 million. 3 right in the city, mainly city, and then the suburbs, the rest. The Jose San Martin that's his mausoleum. He was the liberator of Chile, Peru, and Argentina. So that's where he's buried. This is the Catholic Church in Recoleta, right next to the Recoleta Cemetery where Eva Perón was buried. In her family mausoleum, her father was Juan Duarte's, but she was born out of wedlock, so they weren't going to bury her there, but roundabout she finally did get there, as that's her spot. She died at age 33 of cancer, so very young, but still, as you can see the outline in the building, she's still thought of very highly. This is a bottle tree or a kapok tree, which is all over the city. Kind of got a little swollen base to it. That's the blossoms for the flower people. Let me see here. Argentina is known for many things. Of course, it's football. It won the World Cup last year. It's Merlot wine. It's mixed grill, which is an asada, which is all kinds of meats. I wouldn't recommend the kidney or the intestine, but the pork, the beef, and the chicken are good. And the other thing would be, besides yerba mate, which the herb tea, is dulce de leche, which is sweet milk that's in everything. They have dulce de leche ice cream. This is a dulce de leche donut. This is the famed Opera House. This is the British Tower, which the English built to commemorate the 100-year independence of Argentina. It's a clock tower. This is a tour of La Boca, which is the mouth of Argentina, of Buenos Aires rather, where the immigrants all came. So all the buildings are very colorfully painted. It's where the artists and the craftspeople hang out. Also where they say the tango was started. And this is, I don't know if anybody here might have made it to Origins last week, or at the Foothills. They had a tango quartet, Grammy winning, from New York City that was here in the area. And they played this bandoneon, which is a instrument specifically for the tango. So there's a little movie clip here if it plays, hopefully. Quite the dance for sure, isn't it? Did play. Ta-da. And we got to try it too, but we weren't anywhere near as graceful, that's for sure. The 3 days at Iguazu Falls was after the Antarctic trip, but I'm putting it in here before we go, so we end on the Antarctic note. But from Buenos Aires, we took a plane to the Iguazu Falls, which is right in the extreme northeast part of Argentina, borders Paraguay and Brazil. Iguazu means big falls. It is the a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the new 7 wonders of the world. It's twice as high as Niagara Falls, 65 feet wider, has 275 different waterfalls. Of course, Angel Falls in Venezuela is higher, but the power of the water at this place was quite something, and it is in a jungle, so it was hot after being cold. It's kind of nice. This is from our hotel window. You can see Brazil here, Paraguay here, and Argentina here. It's at the confluence of the Iguazu River and the Parana River. And they were celebrating their 83rd year as a national park. This is kind of an overview when we first get there. You can see the walkways down here. We did both the Argentine side and the Brazilian side. This is Devil's Throat, which is about 230 feet, I guess, high. I'm gonna keep track of my notes here. Just some more of the falls. Just amazing power of water for sure. Took a boat ride on the river. And then we were got a little bit wet. This is a plush crested jay. It was a corvid. They were quite characters, much like our corvids are here, very intelligent, looking right at you. This is a Cody or Cody Mundi. On this particular bridge, there are probably 3 dozen adults and babies were walking, which I did have a movie of, but it's too long. So anyway, you had to watch. They were all around the people in the park, so you had to kind of watch. They didn't bite you. Here's some babies kind of rustling for grubs and insects. Can't really hear that very well, but that's okay. These are capybaras, the biggest rodents in the world. The adults, the males can weigh up to 150 pounds. They can run as fast as a dog, and they can hold their breath for 5 minutes underwater. So they're quite the critters. This is a Roxburgh fig, which I'd never seen before. Figs growing on the trunk of the tree. And that's just a view from the Brazilian side. Okay, so we're coming back to Buenos Aires, and then flying south over the Andes Mountains here to Ushuaia, which is the capital of the province of Tierra del Fuego, Argentina, and we're there. 90% of the tourists leave for Antarctica from Ushuaia. The rest from Tasmania or New Zealand, mostly to the research stations on the other side of Antarctica. I forgot to say that, well, we'll wait till we get there. That's our pod, so we could be without masks when we were with our pod. This is Inca rose quartz that they're famous for in that province. Makes some beautiful jewelry. And of course, the weaving with the alpaca and the llama hair. They are renowned for their king crab, which is nothing like our Alaskan king crab. It's spindly legged, kind of nothing like our own king crab, but we had to try some. Then we got a nice walk of the Tierra del Fuego National Park, which is a temperate rainforest. This just shows the Argentine flag. Can't see the sun on it, but and this sign The Malvinas are the Falklands, and just to be sure, we know that they are Argentine and not British. There were some nice boardwalks out to the views. This is Lake Asagama. And as a temperate rainforest, lots of lichen. There's this old man's beard was all around there too. It's interesting stuff. And an Antarctic red fox. And there's a view of the Beagle Channel, which I'll show you a map here coming up. From Ushuaia, here's Ushuaia. You go east to the Beagle Channel, which has to have a, what do you call it, pilot for the ship. The captain themselves can't negotiate the Beagle Channel. They have to have a pilot. So a pilot came and boarded and took us out through the Beagle Channel and then down to the South Shetland Islands. Okay, this map shows Ushuaia's here, South Shetland Islands are here, which is about 610 miles across the Drake Passage. And the Drake Passage is where the Atlantic Ocean meets the Pacific. At the south, they call it the Southern Ocean. And it takes 2 days by ship to get there. You might have heard there's either a Drake Shake or a Drake Lake. We were in between. If you ever Google or look at YouTube of Drake Passage, it can be very wild, but we were lucky both coming and going. It wasn't very bad. This Antarctic ant is the opposite of Arctic, of course. The thing with the differences there are the Arctic is water surrounded by continents, but the Antarctic is a continent surrounded by water. And there's a lot of difference. There's no terrestrial mammals in Antarctica. There's no trees, there's no tundra, no shrubs. There's mosses, lots of moss and lichen on the South Shetland Islands, but most of it, 98% of it is ice, and 90% of the fresh water in the world is contained in that ice. It's twice as big as the US, but when it's frozen in the winter, it doubles that size. So, and the ice sheet itself averages 5,900 feet thick. So this continent, which is the 5th largest, is a continent of superlatives. It's the coldest, the windiest, the driest, and what would it be? The highest, actually, on average of any of the continents. So it's just an amazing place, truly. I think that's all we need to know. That was our ship. As I said, it had 100 passengers, but we only had 58. We had a full complement of crew and staff. And this is kind of outlines the basic itinerary that we took. Coming from the Drake Passage, we landed first in the HO Islands here, the South Shetland Islands. The first continental landing was at Brown Bluff. We kind of made a swoop around the Antarctic Sound. Second continental landing at Portal Point. Over here, I'll show pictures, Paradise Bay, Des Moines Point, Deception Island, Hannah Point, and then back, Drake Passage back to Ushuaia. So very little of Antarctica other than research stations can you visit. And in 1967, I think is when the IAATO, the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, formed. And that's to guarantee that only 100 people can land in one spot, and no two tour operators can be at the same place at the same time. They have a boot wash, which I'll show you, that whenever you land, you have to go through the routine. So you're not spreading anything from one stop to another. But very highly regulated tourism down there, which is nice. And if there's a ship that has more than 500 passengers, they aren't even allowed to have people get off. So you have to go with a tour in order to see any of it, unless you're involved with the research. And the Antarctic Treaty itself in 1961 was signed, now has been signed by over 50 countries, which is about 80% of the world's population, to keep Antarctica a place of peace and research, scientific research. So hopefully it does stay that way. Nobody really, there's no capital, there's no claiming the property. It's a good thing. This is Seba, our expedition leader. He was very much fun. The 15 of us had a great time with him. This is the rest of the expedition crew, all very excited. This was their first trip back in 2 years. As I said, so everybody was happy to be able to travel again. And such expertise. We had lectures every day on the marine mammals, on the geology, on the whales, you name it. It was a very educational trip. How much I retained is another story. This is Captain Ivo. He was from the Ukraine, and a lot of the crew was also, or from Croatia. Gave us a tour of the bridge. Nice young captain. Also glad to be traveling again, working again. This is over the Drake's Passage. This was with Seba's 600mm lens, wandering albatross. I wish I could take pictures like that. Lots of birds in the Drake, fulmars and petrels and gulls and terns, and several species of albatross, the gray-headed and the black-browed, and all kinds of seabirds out there. And then I think this next thing is the fin whales. Yeah, the second largest whale next to the blue whales here. Stop pond. 85 feet long.
Fin whales, yeah.
They kind of have a razor back. Long. They also have asymmetrical mandibles. One side is white and the other one's dark for whatever reason. Different whales. This is how we had to suit up every time we went. We did 2 landings a day with our Zodiacs, which was very nice. The weather made it so we could do landings every day, but we had to suit up. They gave us the parkas and we came with the pants. They lent us the boots, masks and life jackets, of course. We had to hang out till we were ready to go, which kind of makes you a little warm. It's like a wetsuit when you're not in the water. Anyway, we're boarding the Zodiacs. And first landing was Brown Bluff, the first continental landing. Lots of Gentoo penguins. They were actually the most common ones we saw there. The Adelies used to be the most common, but they can't take the heat and they've moved south and inland out of the Shetland Islands. This is another Gentoo. They're part of the chinstrap. The Adelie and the Gentoos are all brush-tail penguins. And it kind of helps with their balance. But as you can see, they got little tails to them. Big fat chick. Let's see here. This is a typical nest, Gentoo nest of rocks. That's all, but they fight over the rocks. I don't know why. They steal each other's rocks for the nest. This is just a scale of the 18 species of penguins of the world. The emperors and kings are deep in Antarctica. These Gentoo, chinstrap, and Adelie are the 3 we saw, plus a macaroni. And One other thing about the penguins are only in the southern hemisphere, and the polar bears, of course, are only in the northern hemisphere. So if anybody tells you otherwise, they're wrong. These fairy little blue penguins that were in New Zealand, and the Galapagos penguins I saw, I swam with one when I was there. It was awesome. Anyway, that's another one of those cartoons I liked. This is a chin strap for obvious reasons. I like them. And the sad molting chin straps. I think there's a short film here on the gentoos teaching their babies how to swim in porpoise. You learn how to porpoise to evade their predators, the leopard seals primarily. Then there's one little lone chin strap with families group down the plate there. This is a brown skua. They're real rascals. They're kind of like our ravens, I think. Very intelligent, but also not afraid of people because they have no terrestrial predators. And they're one of the main predators of the chicks and the eggs of the penguins. The next little clip is humpbacks, which we saw many humpbacks, but this is one that was close to the ship.
Thank you. He's playing with us.
Yes.
Amazing.
Just so pristine and quiet. It's like it is truly otherworldly there. Just a few different views of icebergs. This is brash ice, which we had to go through a few times with the Zodiac. Just big chunks of frozen sea ice or glacial ice. This is Esperanza Station, which is a year-round Argentine research station. And the Argentine ice cutter, which Seba was very happy to see his ice cutter. This is the lone Adelie penguin we saw hanging out with the gentoos. And as I said, they were the most common in the South Shetland Islands, but they aren't anymore. This was on my bucket list, this leopard seal. We saw them twice. They're spotted, which is why they are called leopard seals, but they also have a kind of a reptilian head, and they have a real sinuous neck. They're the main predators of the penguins, and they're lone seals, big seals. They're loners. There's one on the ice we got pretty close to. Yeah, I wanted to see a leopard seal. This is a ground station, also Argentine, which we landed to check out the gentoos again. But I took this picture because these chicks are way too young. We were told they weren't gonna make it through the winter. This was the end of February, beginning of March, which was our winter and their summer, but winding down. So those guys might not make it, especially that little guy right there. More molting penguins. Not very happy. Not going to go anywhere till they're done, I guess. These are snowy sheathbills, also predators of the eggs and the chicks of the penguins. And the blue-eyed shags are the Antarctic cormorants. Let's see.
I don't know. I can check it out.
Wilson storm petrel dancing on the water.
Because then there is like a small archipelago.
They say that, play that again, they say that that's the most populous bird in the world. I don't know if that's really true or not, but they guys are,
I don't know. I can check it
they
out.
just kind of flit like they're dancing on the water.
Because then there is like a small archipelago.
No, it's, there you go. It went off. Okay. All right. Where are we here? It did snow one day there, which made the people from California and New Mexico and such very happy. And I didn't mind it either, but we stopped at another landing at Des Moines Point, which used to be a British reconnaissance. They'd bring in supplies from the ship and fly out on small planes from the glacier to Adelaide Island in the 60s. But they don't do that anymore. But that was just still left over. The British still have military exercises there. Those guys are camping out. And we had a nice hike from way down here up to the top in the snow to see the glacier. I got a picture with the ship's doctor who was from Guatemala for a friend of mine with a flag. And that's our crew again, hiking crew. We did a polar plunge there, which really wasn't bad. I mean, it was 34 degrees there and 17 degrees back home. So I didn't mind it very much, but Seba did, obviously. That's our polar plunge crew. Then on to Deception Island, which was quite fascinating. It's very few places in the world can you sail into a caldera of an active volcano. But through Neptune's bellows here, we checked out just this little part, but the geology was interesting, and it's still got active geothermal areas. This is coming into it through Neptune's bellows. And then Neptune's window, which doesn't look very high there, but it was a pretty good hike to the top. And then back down again. As you can see, there's steam and fumaroles up here and over here. We walked along this beach, past this big rock, which had some moss and lichen on it, which we don't, that's all they have there, truly. We should have done our polar plunge here, because we have a parboiled starfish. And first Antarctic fur seals were all along the beach talking to us. This is an old Norwegian whaling station that was given up in '69 with their last eruption, but the tanks where the oil was stored. A couple of grave sites with interesting volcanic pumice rocks. Leaving Neptune's bellows and a view of the window. Giant petrel feeding the chick. This is at Hannah Point, our last real stop. The island was covered with these giant petrels and their big babies. more molting chin straps, and one lone macaroni penguin who they knew would be there. He's his third year of showing up. Why he comes by himself, nobody really seems to know, but he was there and we got to see him. Trying to be a chin strap. Well, you got to hear this. That's all we can hear, really, in our sleep. And we're winding down here, aren't we? This, yeah, we're almost done here. This, on the way back through the South Shetland Islands, on the way to the Drake, it was a calm day, and we just, I took this picture called Reflection for obvious reasons. And this cartoon next thing also makes us reflect what we're going to leave our children and grandchildren with this warming planet we're faced with. The sunset in Ushuaia before we flew back to Buenos Aires. And if I can see it here, I'll leave you with this poem. If once you've been to the Antarctic, you'll never be quite the same. You may look as you looked the day before and go by the same old name. You may bustle about in street and shop. You may sit at home and sew, but you'll see ice, penguins, and seals wherever your feet may go. You may chat with the neighbors of this and that and close to your fire keep, but you'll hear penguins' wake-up calls and winds beat through your sleep. Oh, you won't know why, and you can't say how such a change upon you came. But once you've been to the Antarctic, you'll never be quite the same. And that's the truth. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Put this over here.
Any questions?
Loads of-
Top of it now, seeing the difference. The earth magnetic going to go in another 200 years. Now go this way. There again,
Yeah.
we'll be all dead by then.
Yes. The question was, is the ground permanently frozen as permafrost? And most of, I'd say 99% of it is. But when it's 34 degrees out, not all of it is. 11 days we were in the island, 17 days altogether with Iguazu Falls and Buenos Aires.
So if you're up, if you were to go up to the top of the ice, then you're 6,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah, the ice is 5,900 on average feet thick, the ice sheet, a mile thick. And then March 5th, after we got back a couple days, they found the ship Endurance, Shackleton's ship, 2 miles down in the Weddell Sea, pristine condition. You could read the name on the back of the ship. So that was quite something. Sure. Well, Yeah, they had navigated around the ice. Really, the South Shetland Islands are pretty open. They have that ice breaker if you need it, but we didn't have any need for it. Yeah. Yes. Well, I can't tell you because I don't have my taste and smell, and it's not from COVID, it's from falling off a horse. So, I'm sure it was pure, but I couldn't tell you. I really can't. But it's just so serene and quiet when yeah. It could be from heavy metals. I don't know. Yeah, well, heavy metals will do it too, but I think I sheared my olfactory nerve from falling off a horse, to be honest. I don't think so. Yes, Lou.
Zoom so that they hear. Average temperatures while you were there.
It was 30s, low 30s, because it's their summer. It's their
Okay.
summer.
Did your guides talk about disappearing ice?
Disappearing ice, just that the Thwaite Glacier was having big pieces falling off it. Yeah,
Okay, and the person in the photo where they were going through the sterilization process? Is
yes,
that what that was?
yes. So they don't contaminate from one landing to another. They don't want to bring anything from one island to the other.
Awesome. And somebody else wants to know, where's your next trip?
I'm going to no, I'm done international because I've done and I can't afford it anymore anyway. I built a new house, so I'm going fishing in Alaska in August. Ketchikan, so with an ex-brother-in-law and a friend, so it'll be good. I have to talk to Andy about Alaska. Any other questions? Well, temperature of the water is 33. Because it's, it's not frozen, but it's cold. Yeah, yep. Oh, you're welcome.